You are listening to Talking Star Wars. Welcome, one and all.
I'm Alex,
I'm Connor,
and today we're going to talk about Star Wars.
as we normally do.
We are going to continue one of our ongoing series of topics in the Star Wars universe and look at an interesting force power and what it means and how it functions, and also, as I said, what it means.
Yeah, specifically, we're taking a look at one that I feel like is a little bit morally suspicious. A lot of these force powers that we've looked at lean towards, one side of the force or the other. Force heal, you don't see a lot of Sith doing. Force lightning, you don't see a lot of Jedi doing. But today we're going to take a look at the Force choke. It's a little bit more nebulous out of all of the Force using skills out there.
The Force choke just appears to be an extension of the telekinesis that most powerful Force users could use. You reach out into the Force, you can manipulate physical objects or even the bodies of living creatures. But this is specifically using the Force to choke off someone's airway and either nearly kill them or kill them. Famously first appearing when Darth Vader Force choked an officer aboard the first Death Star in the first meeting that we ever see him attend with Grand Moff Tarkin.
I think I might need to correct myself on one of our previous episodes because I can't remember which one, but I said that the telekinesis doesn't come about until Empire Strikes Back. But technically, Darth Vader is using his mind to cause pressure upon someone's throat from afar without touching him, so that is technically telekinesis.
And we do have Obi-Wan causing noise inside the reactor of the Death Star's tractor beam chamber.
I never noticed that one, but I can picture the scene you're talking about. I just thought that was nice circumstance for him.
But to go back to the Force choke itself, so it is one of the signature ability that we see the Sith utilize. In the films, we see Force choke utilized by Darth Vader.
So many times.
Yeah.
From across time and space, even, he'll be on a different starship choking one of his officers for their failures.
Yeah, it's how Admiral Piet goes from Captain Piet to Admiral Piet when his predecessor, who botched the invasion of Hoth, is Force choked to death. And Piet receives the promotion. It is a scene type that has been parodied and commented on in many other pieces of Star Wars media, but the fact that Darth Vader is this terrifying force that will force choke to death anyone who fails him is a well understood phenomenon.
We see it used by his son Luke Skywalker, who chokes a couple of Gamorrean guards as he enters Jabba's palace. It makes me question the morality of Luke as a character because, Gamorrean guards are working for Jabba the Hutt. Jabba the Hutt's a bad guy. I'm sure those guards are, vicious the creatures, but I don't want to judge them just for looking like green pigs. But he straight up murders at least two people without them giving him just reason to do so.
Yeah, we don't know if he kills the Gamorreans. He could just use the Force choke to get by them. And we do see other powerful Force users use the Force to bypass underlings. Yoda Force slamming two Imperial guards in Revenge of the Sith just to face down Palpatine himself.
He does stab a clone trooper once the clones are kind of hooked into Order 66.
Part of it, I suppose, is an approach and a method. Is this using the Force in a way that is inherently dark side? Because using the Force to even, engage in combat and kill is not an inherently dark side activity. Mm-hmm. Unlike some settings where if you use magic to kill, it's obviously an evil and addictive act. It's like, no, the dark side has certain abilities that are dark, but Star Wars leans heavily on the side of sometimes violence is the necessary approach to combating tyranny and evil. Our protagonists are all in a militaristic rebellion in the first three movies against a tyrannical empire. And they engage in guerrilla tactics, they blow up space stations, and they have a fleet. So the Jedi may be peace-loving and peacekeepers, but they are hardly pacifists.
I'm trying to, just scan through the series in my mind, and I see a lot of Jedi fighting battle droids. Smugglers than more battle droids. And it's just very common and, usual for there to be some violence against the droids, but they're not technically sentient, although others would argue otherwise. And seeing them combat other humanoid foes, I don't know. There's something about the Force choke in general that seems exploitive,
deliberately cruel, perhaps.
There are other ways to overcome someone, like in the martial arts, let's say judo. You're trying to redirect someone, not overtly trying to intimidate someone's boss by choking out his pig guards.
We call them Gamorreans. They have names.
The Gamorrean guards, which we need to cover in our second episode on alien species in the future.
Yeah, so the Force itself, not inherent. It is a power, and when it is twisted out of balance, it is in the dark side. And I believe Connor and I are coming down on the side that yes, the Force choke is a dark side ability. It is a sign when Luke uses it in Return of the Jedi that he is not yet a fully realized Jedi and is engaging in some questionable practices. We see Anakin Skywalker's fall to the dark side is precipitated by many things, but when he force chokes Padme, who's burying his children, it is definitely a sign that the dark side has a hold of him.
And what I love about the Clone Wars is that it builds up that behavior for him. So the first person that he chokes out isn't his wife, but you can tell that he is starting to turn in the Clone Wars series more and more when you see him force choke an enemy and you hear the music turn ominous. It's a harbinger of the man/machine that he's going to become.
Yeah, and how the pressures of war, the manipulation by Palpatine, and the rigidity of the Jedi Council all combine to make one of their most powerful generals fall to the dark side. So we have to look at why is Force choke, which is simply just appears to be a straight-up application of other Force powers that even Jedi would have a dark side power. And I think you can look at this in the same context that you view, well, why do we contemn the actions of Saw Gerrera when the rebellion itself we generally approve of? Mm-hmm. And I believe it's the methods that you employ and the way in which you use the power that you have are a fundamental aspect of Star Wars. So much like Saw Gerrera is removed from the rebellion for employing methods that the Rebel Alliance does not approve of, even though they're using the same goals and having some of the same powers and abilities. In the same way, Force choke is taking the telekinesis of the Force and connection to the universe around you and using it in a way that is deliberately painful and cruel, and it's easier certainly to force choke someone and cut off their air and have them die.
It's all in the intention.
Yeah, and we see the only other people other than Luke that we see employ the Force choke. We see Dooku employ it when he's fighting Obi-Wan in Attack of the Clones. We see Ventress in the Clone Wars employ Force choke many times. Not always the most successfully, because Ventress always thinks she's more powerful than she is.
Do we see Kylo Ren ever deliberately choke someone, or does he just more so pull people? Does he, compel people to give him information through telepathy? I don't know if he actually chokes anyone.
Well, he slams people against walls. He slams General Hux into a few things. He draws him closer. I'm not sure we ever see Kylo Ren deliberately employ the Force choke. Though I'm going to look it up.
Not that I would put it past him, but there's just something I was curious about. But taking a look at video games, I imagine Cal Kestis doesn't Force choke anyone. Is that within his repertoire?
No, if we look at sort of the video game environment, both Legends and canon, Force choke is not a power that Cal Kestis employs. He can force lift people, then stab them with his lightsaber, but he's not in the business of engaging in unnecessary cruelty, as he is trying to be a Jedi.
And Force choke is not an immediate death. It is a longer death than decapitation or impalement by lightsaber.
We do see Kylo Ren, now that I'm recalling, Force choke one First Order general that does not agree with him as Supreme Leader in The Rise of Skywalker.
Well, that explains why I couldn't remember it.
As frequent listeners will know, Connor has conflicted feelings about The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, that's fair. I was going to say, am I in conflict with how much I dislike the movie? And then it's like, yes, I am still in conflict. Do I dislike it a lot or a little bit? But
Yeah, but we never see Ahsoka Tano, even after she leaves the Jedi Order, engage using the Force choke power, though she certainly possesses the ability to. We never see Luke engaging and using the power again after he uses it to invade Jabba's palace, and this is after he accepts being a Jedi. We never see Yoda employ a similar power. Qui-Gon Jinn, who's a more fast and loose with the rules Jedi, cowboy Jedi, if you will, never employs Force choke. So this really it seems to require not just tapping into the dark side in some way.
Even thinking back at other media, the video games where you use it in Legends, it's a dark side power in Jedi Outcast and that series.
And in Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, Force Choke is one of the premier dark side powers, and you must be skilled in the dark side to use the power at all.
And same thing with Starkiller in Force Unleashed. He's drained by Darth Vader, and although you kind of, I would say, ride a similar line to Ahsoka, where you definitely don't end up a Jedi, but he's, also nowhere near the dark side by the end of that game. So he's still on the nebulous side. Which also, small note, both Ahsoka Tano and Starkiller, a.k.a. Galen Merrick, used the backwards lightsaber grip. Just wanted to point out that both of Anakin's, cross-media apprentices use that same grip.
And apparently gives you, but appears to be independent from your predilection for Force Choke, as Starkiller does that, and Ahsoka does not.
So I think the culmination of all this is taking a look back at Luke and seeing why he would use the Force Choke in Return of the Jedi. And I think you're right, it's just he hasn't fully accepted that calling of the Jedi. He doesn't fully understand it. Perhaps at that point. I mean, ultimately in his heart, he's not trying to kill Darth Vader at the end of the movie. He's trying to save his father. And he's not out to kill Jabba the Hutt at the beginning of the movie. He's just trying to save his friends. So it's...
He does threaten Jabba the Hutt that, oppose me and you will be destroyed.
Yeah.
So he makes death threats, and then he follows through on them. I mean, he throws a dozen people into the Sarlacc, slashes his way through that, and blows up the whole sail barge. Luke Skywalker, as discussed earlier, is hardly a pacifist.
That was self-defense. That was...
Well, yeah, the Jedi...
about to be pushed into a pit.
Yeah, the Jedi are firm believers in self-defense.
Yeah.
But, I mean, were there other slaves or people aboard the barge? It's sort of given a little bit of a pass. But, I mean, Luke blew up the Death Star, and he is not particularly haunted by the deaths of the millions of Imperials aboard. He is a quintessential freedom fighter, and he doesn't want to kill his father because he wants to draw him back to the light side, but for most people that are actively engaging in fights against the rebellion, he is more than happy to kill them if he has to.
I just realized that the 2 Gamorrean guards isn't the hill that I should be dying on when it comes to questioning Luke's morality. You're right, it should be the Death Star filled with, just Imperial grunts who are, I don't know, janitors, maintenance workers, secretaries, other administration who aren't involved in the, genocide of other alien races.
But are serving aboard a station it is a tool of genocide. Yeah. So don't really blame Luke Skywalker for blowing up the Death Star. In fact, it is presented as a triumphant act, but it is also, for Imperial loyalists, he's a mass murderer and is regarded as such for the duration of the rebellion period. Luke is not particularly troubled by the destruction of the Death Star, but really, really wants to save his father and pull him back to the light side, and in fact succeeds in doing so. So this does raise some interesting, broader moral questions, yet as the use of the Force should. It should not just be something flashy that appears on the screen, but being used to delve into these more complicated philosophical issues. Why is Luke Skywalker so, despite being a freedom fighter, rebel, Imperials would call him a terrorist, he's a soldier in wartime, and, necessarily engages in fighting and kills people when he has to.
As all the Jedi did back in the Clone Wars and, all prior conflicts that they took part in.
So why are we both troubled by his use of the Force choke? Should we be troubled by his use of the Force choke? And why is he so insistent that, despite killing millions of other people, that he wants to bring his father back to the light side? So I think part of this refers to the Force itself, in that we've seen the damage a single Force user falling to the dark side can cause, far beyond that of an ordinary person. Like Grand Moff Tarkin is undoubtedly evil, but it's Palpatine that managed to forge the Empire and murder the Jedi, and it is Darth Vader who is his hand. And so Anakin Skywalker becoming Darth Vader by falling to the dark side. I think this represents the temptation and the power that a Jedi or Force user has. Being corrupted to the dark side is a horrifying thing.
Well, I would, in response to that, say that, considering the Death Star, its potential danger, it blew up Alderaan. It blew up part of, or I think it blew up Scarif and part of
Jeddah.
Yeah.
As we see in expanded universe material, such as in the Star Wars comics, if anyone wants to read, Scarif and Jeddah do not really remain habitable. The planets still exist. Scarif more so than Jeddah. But Jeddah, literally has a hole going through to the core, and the planet slowly dies, and there's a bunch of cults that pop up around there. So they don't use the whole reactor to blow up the whole planet, but they kill the planet still.
There's loss of life, and the Death Star represents the unending potential for loss of life caused by the Empire. So in Luke destroying one Death Star, it saves the rest of the universe potentially. So there is some ethical balancing going on there, where now we don't have that potential danger of what this, massive weapon can cause. Yeah. But why we're still troubled by the Force choke, I think it's in that execution of power, where it's, if you push a guard back 6 feet, would that have the same intimidation effect as a Force choke, but without that same potential damage to the alien larynx?
So we don't really criticize Luke Skywalker for blowing up the Death Star. We've just seen it used to murder billions of people on Alderaan. Yeah. So it's understandable. But Luke is not personally going forward and lighting on fire all the people on the Death Star. He's not shooting all the escape pods down from destroyed Star Destroyers.
He's not ordering attacks on civilian people on Imperial worlds.
In fact, he refrains from all of those activities, and even when he helps to blow up the second Death Star. But so I think the reason we find it troubling is not because of the actual act and potentially deaths of Jabba's guards, but a sign of the corruption of power. Because the Force is a power, and using it to blow up the Death Star, which is about to kill everyone he was friends with and be a tool of tyranny, great. But if Luke is going to go the easy route, ultimately, that's what the creation of Death Star led from, was Palpatine wanted an easy way to rule the universe. So it's sort of the end sum of that line of thinking is, I'll just force choke these Gamorreans because I want to go talk to Jabba and show myself off as this powerful Jedi. Well, it's why don't I just have a Death Star? I don't think Luke would ever end there, but there are ways in which Luke Skywalker falling to the dark side would have been a terrible thing. And I think that ties into the theme in general of Luke Skywalker in showing that he rejects the dark side by the end and embraces the Jedi, and then must be redeemed by his father, who is not, it's up to the viewer whether they want to forgive Darth Vader. No one in the setting other than Luke forgives Darth Vader, which is entirely understandable.
Yes. He is, our black hat villain, our, previously masochistic demonic force. So finding any, sliver within him to forgive is something that only a noble Jedi could do, and a son could do.
So to take a coda on the Force choke, I believe it is a good and almost easy visual indication of someone's approach to the Force. Like in the Kenobi show, when Darth Vader shows up the first time and just snaps the neck with Force choke of a child in the street. It's oh yeah, this is Darth Vader off the chain. This is evil. We're not going to see Obi-Wan Kenobi. The only time we see him using the Force is to save a child Leia from plunging to her death. And this is Darth Vader showing up using the same Force to just kill some people while walking down the street with such casual ease. And I think therein lies the visual and storytelling weight of the Force choke, in that it is the ultimate act of showing someone's power over someone else, and it is a slow and agonizing death for them, which is understandable for the Sith, and is why the Jedi avoid it, even when they do employ the Force in deadly ways.
Yeah, I did not expect this conversation to go into such ethical realms, and I'm glad that it did, because it helps to again reframe certain characters and why they commit the acts that they do for good and ill will. So join us in the future when we talk more about force powers. Drop us a suggestion on our subreddit.
Reddit.com/r/talking Star Wars. Yeah, and with any good exploration of the Force or speculative elements in Star Wars, seeing how it is a lens by which you can view morality and philosophy and the meaning of characters and actions is the approach we like to take. So, yeah, let us know your thoughts on the Force Choke. Thank you for listening, and join us next time for more Star Wars.
We'll see you sometime soon in a galaxy right here.